So it is almost the final weekend before the last Thursday of the month, and well, you probably know what that means. Of course, it's car silhouette release time, and this time around, well, it's a little bit early. It's actually on the Friday instead of the typical Saturday or Sunday. And in typical fashion, Kaz has headed over to X or Twitter, whichever you want to call it, to show off the new silhouettes. There are 3 new cars coming in a new update next week. Now, as usual, this will more than likely be the trailer drop on the Wednesday and the full patch notes and update dropping on the Thursday. If you're wondering if there's going to be a new track, probably not. Once again, he didn't mention the words big in his actual tweet or post. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into the silhouettes. So as you can see, these are the 3 new cars coming to GT7 next week, and these are the silhouettes for them. Now, I am again not finding these the easiest whatsoever. I feel like since November of last year, Kaz has stepped it up to do his best to hide what the cars are. However, I feel like after doing a bit of researching and looking around and referring to the leaked car list, I have a decent enough idea as to what these 3 vehicles may be. Now, as you can see from the front left, this is a very bubble shaped vehicle. At the back we have something that resembles either a hatchback or an estate type vehicle, and at the front right we can see body lines that may hint at a possible supercar. So I'm going to take you one by one through each of these individual silhouettes to give you my thoughts and predictions on what each of these vehicles may be. Now again, this is purely just predictions. I don't have any extra information or anything like that as to what these cars are, so just take it with a pinch of salt. We'll get the full reveal on the following Wednesday. So let's begin with the front left silhouette. I think this is probably the easiest of the bunch. However, I am seeing 2 different things, but I am certainly set in being in one single camp. Now, what people are generally thinking for this one is it's either the Nissan March or Micra of the K13 generation, or the Renault Kangoo, which is a van. If you've never heard of it, I'm going to show you one on screen now, and this is the first generation from, I believe, about 1997. But for me personally, I'm not quite seeing it. I get why people might think it's this, but for me personally, I think this is the K13 generation of Nissan March / Nissan Micra. Again, I'm not fully clued up on these models. I don't know if it changes or it's just a nameplate change when it goes overseas. So again, if we just go back to the silhouette, as you can see, it's got a very bubble-like shape to it. It's also got the antenna coming off the top of the roof, and for me personally, I'm just straight away seeing that sort of generation of Nissan Micra from that sort of time period. I know very shortly after, around about 2015, they got an entirely new model and the older one was phased out. But again, for those that think it may be the Renault Kangoo, I can absolutely see why. But for me personally, I'm straight away seeing some type of Nissan Micra. And of course, Gran Turismo does have a history of this car. There's a couple of models I really wish this would be. The first is the Nismo variant, but unfortunately, maybe it's just me here, but I'm not quite seeing this silhouette add up to the Nismo S variant that you're seeing on screen now. But if you remember rightly, when it comes to the Nissan Micra or Nissan March, in the older Gran Turismo games, there was actually a cup car version of the Nissan Micra. Now, I believe the Nissan Micra Cup car that I'm talking about was based on the K12, which I think ran from the early 2000s to around about 2008, 2009, something like that. And I did do a bit of research, and there was a more modern variant of a Nissan Micra Cup car, which I believe raced over in Canada, which would be a seriously cool addition. But unfortunately, I think this is probably just wishful thinking on my part. But for me, I'm pretty set on this being the K13 generation of Nissan Micra / March. Okay, moving on to silhouette number 2, we're going to go straight to the back of the image, and I would say this is probably the one that's throwing most people off, myself included. It is incredibly difficult to really make much out from this one. Seems very hatchbacky or estate-like, and for me personally, I think this might be the Volvo C30. Now, if this does end up being the C30, I really hope it's the Polestar version that you're seeing here on screen. It more than likely isn't, but for reference, it does maintain that kind of typical shape that I'm seeing. Again, it's got kind of hatchback / estate-like features. If we look just above the arches where the front bonnet is, or the hood of the car, we can see the very prominent line that sort of dips downwards. And again, towards the front, we can see just where the grille is / bumper begins, that it sticks out quite a bit. So for me, this very much goes in line with what I'm seeing on that back silhouette. So again, we'll just go back to the silhouette here. As you can see, very much screams sort of hatchback slash estate. I've seen some people think it might be a Mazda, and I can absolutely see why. But for me, with the reason I think it's a C30, it sort of matches up on the pillars, as well as if we look at that bonnet, it's got these sort of slight slope downwards, the line sort of in the side sections of the actual hood slash bonnet, and then again, the front grille really protrudes out. Other things I'm hearing is that people seem to think this is a Bentley. Again, I can 100% see why. As you can see, the actual bonnet lines on the Bentley here really do kind of match up. But again, I think this might just be wishful thinking that Polyphony have somehow managed to get Bentley in game, which had been entirely absent, at least up until yet. I'm not saying it's not, but for me, I'm just kind of seeing the C30 with this one. And again, if we think about it, it is an addition to a manufacturer that they added into the game earlier on last year and haven't added anything since. So for me, I definitely lean towards this being some type of Volvo, more than likely the C30. But feel free to let me know what you think in the comment section. Let's move on to the final one then. Okay, we're going to go over to the far right hand side here for the final car silhouette, and as we can see, if we take a closer look, there's some very aggressive body lines here on both the roof and the bonnet slash hood part of the vehicle. Now this to me leads to it being some type of supercar. Now what I've done is refer back to the updated leaked car list, which has led me to two possible vehicles this could be. I'm 100% leaning towards it being some type of supercar, but when it comes to those supercars, there was two vehicles on that list that really stood out to me. So the first car that really stood out to me on the leaked car list was the 2018 Aston Martin Vantage, and as we can see here, it does feature some very aggressive body lines. Again, on the bonnet, it does seem to very much match up, and if we look at the roof section, we can see it sort of indents in, which again we can see on the silhouette. And I think more than likely it probably is that 2018 Aston Martin Vantage. Now whilst I'm almost 100% that that is the Aston Martin Vantage, the other car that was on the leaked car list that kind of stood out to me as being a possibility is the Ferrari 812 Superfast. Again, this car has been on that list for what feels like forever, and it still isn't in game. So if it isn't the Vantage, I'm gonna have to say it's quite possibly the 812 Superfast. But again, the body lines don't quite add up correctly, unlike with the Vantage, which really kind of screams Vantage in the silhouette. But once again, feel free to let me know what you think down in the comment section below. And there we go, that is the 3 new vehicles coming with an update next week. More than likely it will drop on the Thursday, with the full car reveals being on the Wednesday in a full update trailer. Again, my predictions, I'm thinking it is some type of Nissan Micra from around about 2010 until about 2015. The next car I reckon in the middle is going to be the Volvo C30, or at least some type of Volvo, but for me I'm just getting C30 vibes here. And in terms of the final car, I'm 100% on this being some type of supercar, and more than likely the Aston Martin Vantage from 2018, which is on the updated leaked car list. Anyway, that is going to be it from me today. A huge thank you to all you guys watching at home. Let me know what your predictions are in the comment section down below, and a huge thank you to all of my channel members listed on screen now. I'll see you in the next one. Take care guys. Peace.